The views on the last video haven't completely died off yet, though they're just about to, and I'm back with another one. Let's see what we have to talk about today. Despite looking like a late 16-bit turn-based role-playing, judging by the screens only, Little Monk is a Taiwanese top-down arcade shooter, and a pretty decent game at that if I say so myself. And I do, so there's that. If it's said in the video, it's gotta be the truth. Everyone knows that. Fact. Don't quote or fact-check me on that though. The protagonist that you're playing as is a little bold Shaolin monk. Technically speaking, being who he is, he should be doing all his fighting with fast and deadly kung fu moves. It's not the case though, and he's firing various projectiles big and small, left and right like a little Shaolin badass that he is. He does look eerily similar to Krillin from Dragon Ball Z though, so I just can't escape the feeling that he should be throwing punches and uppercuts and not shots, but whatever. It's a me problem and not something wrong with the game. Anyway, you'll be traveling the land, fighting various animals and mythical folklore Chinese creatures, so bees, boars, bats, dragonflies, ghosts, and many other that I cannot even try to pretend to understand the genesis of. Then there are bosses, which are huge, often nearly as big as fourth of the screen and even more imaginative than the regular baddies. For instance, gigantic skeleton drunk who turns into what looks like a ball of yarn to move between the spots and throws green ice at you. Yes, ice. And I have no proof that he's drunk other than the bottle that he holds onto like he would to his life. Or Black Bear, rolling on a barrel as if there was no tomorrow. Weird stuff, man. There's a ton of them. There are obviously various power-ups, special weapons, bombs, or even limited-use spells scattered around the game world for you to find too, so exploration and discovery is well rewarded. As shooters go, Little Monk may have more in common with games like Commando rather than Contra or R-Type, but despite the novel and rarely used in 1995 design approach, it's really fun and pleasure to go through. Graphics and sounds are excellent too, mixing cute with mystical and historical, all very detailed, colorful and well-fitting. Little Monk should be well known, so even if it's years too late, it's still worth to shed a little light on it today. If you get a chance, check it out. Livingstone II is a sequel to much more well-known and popular first game, Livingstone, I presume. It starts directly after the original and it's also a 2D side-scrolling platformer, giving off very strong Indiana Jones vibes. There's one thing that's different though, and it basically changes everything from the original. In the first game, where you look for the Dr. Livingstone, at the very end, in a cliffhanger moment, you learn that the person you found was not in fact him. The second, this game, starts with you being found supposedly at the end of the first one by said adventurer and playing as the Doctor now. Continuity is not Livingstone II's strongest suit, it seems. Let's be clear, it's not very important gameplay-wise, but kinda breaks the plot if you care for this in your platformers. Anyway, this time you have to find the ancient treasure hidden in the ruins of the heart of the African jungle and then escape it. The jungle, not the ruins. Though they are in the jungle, so them too, I suppose. Once again, you're armed with a whip and a pole to help with traversal and can pick up other weapon and non-weapon objects. The latter is useful in various puzzles during your adventure. Jungle, as they tend to be in video games, is full of both animals bent on killing you seemingly for no reason and traps popping up from everywhere. Granted, I've never been to a jungle, so perhaps that's an accurate representation of reality, I'll probably never know. There's two quote-unquote worlds that you have to traverse through in Livingstone II, and they're rather large and interesting, even if graphically simplistic, with mostly solid black backgrounds. A step up from the first game, no doubt about that, but they're unimpressive nonetheless. If you played the first title and enjoyed it, then this one is a must. If you didn't, then keep in mind that the traps are rather annoying and will often require perfect timing to be beaten. Fortunately, you'll get to discover many shortcuts as you play, so that'll be a little helpful. Lorna is a side-scrolling action-adventure arcade sci-fi fantasy beat-em-up. I know, I got lost half the way too. A lot of words to describe the simple concept you see on the screen. Lorna is based on the popular Spanish graphic novel by Alfonso Aspiri and portrays a skimpy-clothed heroine shaking booty and kicking ass. Not necessarily in that order. Either way, in Lorna you have to stick to tried and tested beat-em-up formula of if it moves, mow it down. And if you will also succeed. You can engage enemies in hand-to-hand combat or use your rifle. Although it's worth pointing out that the ammo is limited, so you can't rely on shooting only. Lorna is composed out of 5 stages, 3 of which are beat-em-up brawling bonanzas, and 2, second and fourth to be precise, are viewed from behind the back hoverbike chase levels. They're a nice change of pace, though honestly entirely unnecessary in a game that's not great on its own. It plays slow and choppy, looks rather disappointing, and seems to be placing all its bets on bikini-wearing heroine. which is cool and all, but not enough to save the game with below average gameplay. Interestingly enough, Lorna came out on the Amiga in the same time and looks much better there. Sure, it's largely unimportant as it's the same disappointing experience, but if you really have to check it out, better do it on Commodore's system. Now that's how you end a game preview in DOS-centric video, by saying that it's better on another system. I'm a pro. I'm Batman. Yes you are. So we're a pro and Batman, the dynamic duo like no other. As the name, Gamebox cover and its title screen says, Low Blow is all about that. Illegal moves in boxing, which in this boxing title by Synergistic Software are actually completely legal. And even more so, very effective. Kinda like they are in real life, hence why they're banned here. Now, knowing all that, it's kinda clear that Low Blow is not a simulation but rather an arcade fighting game. Which is not bad, but also bases its whole gameplay gimmick on its single mechanic alone. And that's not much, I'm afraid. You can play either in single versus bout against a friend, or in a tournament, which is the main fare of the game, going through a series of increasingly more difficult opponents to become the champion. Champion of crotch jabs, I suppose. Or Master Ball Wrecker, both fit as well. Anyway, the range of moves available to fighters is rather limited, so you'll have to work your way around the limitation by mixing them in such a way that they would form efficient combos. It's perhaps not great gameplay-wise, but if you don't mind it too much, then you can actually enjoy Low Blow. Graphics, for EJA at least, are excellent, displaying gigantic for the time and system sprites, nicely detailed backgrounds, be it in the gym, ring or fighter's portraits, and overall feel like the absolute best that could be squeezed out of the aging architecture. Sounds are not great and not worth any attention here really. So yeah. To summarize, Low Blow, if approached while keeping in mind that it's an arcade game and with the right mindset of not expecting too much, can actually be fun, especially if you have someone else there with you to destroy. Alone or when having too high expectations, based on screenshots alone for instance, the way we used to often judge games back in the day browsing Gaming Mags, it would quickly crash and burn in confrontation with what it offers in reality. It's not a bad game, but it's definitely not a good one either. It's, well, a game. Magic Maycabs is a DOS reimagination of BBC Micro's classic single-screen platformer. Instead of the humanoid character like in the original, however, you're controlling a small car. So if you ever wondered how it would be to play a platformer with a car, now's your chance to check it out. Your goal is as simple as they come, to drive over all the mushrooms on each stage, cause it's definitely not collecting when you're in a car, and when you do, a block leading to the next stage will unlock itself and you'll be able to move on. All stages are obviously crawling with enemies, from spiders through crabs all the way to weird green monsters of questionable origin, and everything in between. Since you aren't with absolutely nothing, and I mean it, nothing, you have to avoid them. And they're pretty crafty bunch, cause while some are stationary and only move on a preset path, others will actively chase you if you get within their aggro range. Anyway, having to avoid the enemies is a bit odd, cause you're in a car after all, and they're all in most cases just small creatures that you should be able to easily drive over, but whatever. Perhaps it's a hidden lesson to avoid driving over pedestrians, whether they're human or not. Anyway, like I said, you gotta avoid the bodies and jump between the platforms to get to hard to reach spots. Also, if you've never seen a car using a ladder, it's another little new thing you'll get to experience in Magic Maycabs. As you do all that, it's crucial that you quickly learn how to gauge your jumps as reach, as if you misjudge them and start falling and it's from anything higher than few blocks, you'll die. Or, well, crash and die. Depends how you wanna look at it. I don't think the order is important, outcome is though. All levels are timed, and while in the first bunch it's irrelevant and something you may very well overlook, the further you go, the more challenging they will become and more prominent the time limit will feel too. Graphics and sounds, as you see and hear, are not great, but gameplay is pretty fun, provided you enjoy those more classic than Mario platformers, those that originated in the arcades in times of Joust, Arkanoid or Centipede. Simple games with simple loop, but demanding and with steadily growing difficulty. Magic Maycabs obviously is a DOS original and did not come from arcades, but it shares the same spirit. If you're a creative type, it also includes a built-in level editor, so there's that. Magic of Endoria came out in 1994 on PC and C64 of all platforms, and it's the same game that plays a bit different, but I'll get back to it in a minute. The game obviously takes place in the kingdom of Endoria, gods of which, seeing the evil of men, decided to abandon it, morphed into crystal shards and hidden in the underworld to lie there in eternal slumber. In time, eons later, learning about it, two rival archmages, magical badasses extraordinaire, take upon themselves to locate the shards and take their power. Magic of Endoria is a very unusual for the time strategy title that's a little similar to the Dungeon Master games. You build a dungeon, or more likely dig in the underworld, creating dungeon in the process. So, to sustain this operation and your search, you'll have to build, manage and defend your mines. You'll be hiring differently specialized employees of various fantasy kinds, folk like mine workers, oilers, craftsmen, researchers and warriors. They all get experience as the time goes by and require payment for their services. So while digging corridors, rooms, filling them up with traps and trying to research new tools and weapons, you'll be also earning riches to keep your workers content. And fighting too, obviously, both offensively going for the opponent's mines and defensively on your own turf, so to speak. Despite what you may think, being accustomed to more well-known Dungeon Master, simple graphically Magic of Endoria is a rather complex game. I mean, just take a look at the sheer number of buttons all around the borders of the game board. And there's a lot that you can do in the game, so getting familiar with the manual is a necessity, or at the very least a good video tutorial. Magic of Endoria on PC is hex-based and in real time, while on C64 it's top-down and plays in turn-based mode. It's a pretty notable difference if you ask me, but the gameplay concepts and goals are actually identical. It's worth seeing on both, but we're all about PC here today. Oh, and there's also a separate light version that's much easier to grasp for a new player, so there's that. It's not a rule, obviously, but I feel that many of those games, those that came out in the second half of the 90s or even early 2000s, were either very polished and released by a few big studios that still haven't moved to Windows, or conceptually interesting titles by small teams or even singular creators. Often pretty simple in terms of presentation, but either mixing known genres in a fun way or doing something no one's done before. Operation Carnage clearly falls into the latter category. It's not a big game, but it's unique, fun and action-packed. Aliens attacked the Earth and took over, and now use us as food for their souls out of all things. So, a delicacy, but either way you look at it, we're cattle. So you, not being able to take it anymore, dust off your gear and gun, suit up and set off to rid the world of the alien scum. I mean, it was you or Man-Bat, and if I'm to be honest, I'm not sure he'd be able to fit in any of his bat suits the way he's eating now. I'm Batman. Oh no, not you buddy, it's the other Batman I'm talking about. You're still great. Anyway, before he puts the two and two together, Operation Carnage is a top-down arena-like shooter where you mow through thousands of fun and unique enemies fighting for Earth's freedom. The game is divided into 8 sectors and each of them into smaller rooms/arenas. When you defeat all the aliens in the arena, a door opens up to another. In the last room of each sector, you fight a boss, which is usually either a huge alien or an alien ship. Naturally, as in most shooters, there's quite a few weapons and upgrades you'll find on your way, things like a machine gun, plasma gun, fire gun, so different guns, you get the point. Scatter bomb, extra energy and so on and so on and so on. There's a lot of this, is what I'm saying. And as Smash TV-like shooters go, Operation Carnage is really cool, and if you like this, do yourself a favor and track it down. Metropolis is a sci-fi parser-based adventure game, and while I personally hate parser games with a passion, this one's definitely worth a mention. The year is 5067. Yeah, 5067, so a little over 3000 years from now. Good to know we actually do survive till then. You're a security agent working for a generic software company and will find yourself in the middle of the plot that will have you solve 10 different crimes all around the city. You'll control your character with arrows, but all the interactions, dialogues and everything else will be text-based and will require you to input appropriate commands. Interestingly enough, the text parser in Metropolis feels more natural than in many other games in the genre, as instead of questions like "Ask man about scissors," you can just get to him and say, "What do you know about scissors?" But it's a double-edged sword, as the game only recognizes those quote-unquote realistic sentences and not simplified ones used by any other text parser game on the market. So it's a learning experience all on its own. Another unusual thing about Metropolis is that there's virtually no inventory puzzles in it, and it's nearly entirely conversation-driven title. So all situations, all puzzles, everything is resolved by talking to other characters and asking the right questions. And while it may seem odd and way too out of ordinary to be enjoyable, it's surprisingly complex and fun. So I heard. Each of the 10 crimes was committed on a different level of a multi-story city, and each is tad more demanding than the previous. If you're into text adventure games, it's a hidden gem that's not to miss. If you like me though, just carry on to the next game in the video. Even though Oberon 69 sounds like a funky position from the book of all books, the one I'm talking about here today is utter crap and deserves to be forgotten. Here, I said it. Go to town in the comments below if you feel that's necessary. It is also a flip-screen sci-fi action platformer, and while it's an interesting mix, Oberon itself is not great. Story-wise, in a distant future, the air became unbreathable on Earth, the world was slowly turning into that desert, so we've ventured into space to build our cities there and most importantly to survive. and for the most part it was not a bad plan. Settlements spawned left and right, and we seemed to be on the right path for saving our species. But on one of the colonies, the titular Oberon, an unknown ancient life form just awoken from a long slumber, and it seems to be hella aggressive, attacking the population and decimating it. So, naturally, as you always do, you put away your exercise weights, you oil yourself up to have those biceps be so shiny that the alien scum could see their own reflection in them while dying, and you set off to save the babies. Yep, cause in Oberon you save the babies. Odd, I know, but whatever, it is what it is. So your mission is to find all the babies and send them back to Earth, which given the game's story is a rock barely able to sustain life, so I'm not sure what's your decision process here. But I suppose when there's so many muscles on a body, the blood prioritizes going to them and not to the brain. Anyway, for each kit you gotta purchase a cryogenic valve to send it in, so you'll be buying those in appropriate machines. On your adventure you'll face many different enemies like robots, aliens, alien queens and weird larvae among others, and most will stand no chance against you. Other than those, Oberon 69 came out on the Amiga and few 8-bit systems too, and coincidentally that's what the PC version looks like, as if it was running on ZX Spectrum short of color clash and in 4 instead of 8 colors. So extremely dated for 1990. Its main issue is not graphics however, but the fact that it's just not fun. I mean, Amiga version looking much better, like a proper early 16-bit game, is also crap. Because if you paint a crap in rainbow colors, it will still stink of poo. Olympic Games Atlanta 1996 was actually officially licensed by the Olympic Committee, so it's not a random assortment of disciplines put together by drunk developers on one of those lazy Saturday nights in a pub, but rather something that was supposed to accompany the sporting event itself, build a hype for it and bring in some sweet money. Now, it's in this video too, so while it may have reached a small degree of popularity adjacent to the Olympic Games themselves, it is now ultimately a largely forgotten by the time title. Which is odd, as when you play it with friends or better yet against them, and not alone, it's pretty fun, especially if some drinks are involved. Non-alcoholic ones obviously, as I wouldn't like to tickle the hairy underbellies of the YouTube overlords in the wrong way after all. Wink wink nudge nudge. So, Olympic Games is a 3D multi-event sports game conceptually similar to Epic's classics, but using modern at the time presentation and then current system capabilities to their fullest. It can be played in an arcade mode or in the Olympic-style tournament, going through all events, which is definitely more fun. It features 15 different disciplines and there are 100 and 400 meter sprint, 100 meter crawl, javelin, hammer and discus throw, long jump, triple jump, high jump, pole vault, fencing, rapid-fire pistol, weightlifting, archery and skeet shooting. Quite a selection of events, right? Another submission of the incredibly annoying long-running events that were for whatever the reason very popular in 8-bit sporting games is truly appreciated. BBC Radio 5's Alan Green provides the commentary, and overall, while not fantastic, the gameplay is fine and with friends around can be a blast. Sure, the early 3D may not look great today, it's rather crude in fact, but it's not hideous and shouldn't detract you from playing. I wouldn't suggest going at it alone, but as a part of a gaming night with buddies, it's a definite highlight. I'm really happy with today's selection, even if I don't like all of the games in it, but they're varied and interesting and that's always fun. But did you know of any of these? Or are they all new? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. If you didn't, well then there's thumbs down there too. But I suppose you wouldn't have persevered up to this point if you really didn't. Around 60% of you are not subscribed and there's currently no way of knowing if YouTube will decide to recommend you the next episode or not, other than subscribing and hitting that bell, that is. And when you hit that bell, whenever the new video is out, YouTube will actually send you a small and friendly notification about it, so you wouldn't miss it. If you'd like to support the channel, Patreon and YouTube memberships are a great way of doing so. They will help me release better content and also they get first dibs on all new videos before they're publicly accessible on YouTube. If you can't or don't want to do that though, likes and subscribes are great too. I would like to take a moment here and thank all the YouTube creators from whose videos short bits were taken to serve as a background to my commentary. They're amazing and stars among the retro community. You will find names of their channels at the top of the screen when their footage is running and also in the video description below. For me though, this is all, so have a good one and I'll see you next time. Peace.